Remember, the first and only reality of the Sith. There can only be two.
There is less than a year before Episode 9 comes out. It has been touted as the end of the Skywalker Saga. Yet, we really don't know much of anything about it. There is a short time jump, but beyond that, there really isn't much more that we know. Everything else is rumor and speculation. I wanted to discuss a theory I have concerning how the story could possibly end, and how the two previous trilogies actually give us a clue to how this epic saga can be concluded. When we look at the original two trilogies, there is always a sense of tragedy with how those stories concluded. That the end of the story revolves around the main character, their needs and desires, only to have these taken away from them in cruel twists of fate. You could even say that tragedy is the theme of the Star Wars saga. Let's first look at the original trilogy. When we first meet Luke Skywalker, he dreams of going to the stars, to leave behind the quaint existence of the moisture farmer and to go on adventures.
This one, a long time have I watched. All his life as he looked away to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing.
But he wasn't just looking for excitement and adventure for the sake of excitement and adventure. Everything he did was meant to emulate the father he never had. He wanted to go to the stars because his uncle told him that his father was a cargo pilot. He had this romantic image of who his father was that he wished to both emulate and live up to. When he first met Old Ben, most of his conversation with him revolved around his father. He was hungry to learn about this mysterious man that he shared a name with. When he learned that his father was a Jedi Knight, it spurred him to become a Jedi, after Imperial blasters made him have no reason to stay on the planet Tatooine.
Why wish you become Jedi?
Mostly because of my father, I guess.
Father? Powerful Jedi was he. Powerful Jedi.
Oh, come on.
When he met Yoda, he still was striving to become like his father. He had an idea of the Jedi being great warriors, one that was reinforced by Obi-Wan himself when he called Anakin a cunning warrior. He even expressed this to Yoda. Much of his idea of what a Jedi was came from watching those few Jedi he had met, but also by what he had heard about his father. In Legends, Luke learned a more fuller tale about his father's death from other rebels. According to them, the stories that had been passed down came to him being the last man standing in the Jedi Temple, that he was the last to fall, fighting to save the younglings, using his own body and saber to defend those who couldn't save themselves. How could he not have romanticized what his father was? A man who was a Jedi, a cunning warrior, the best pilot in the galaxy, a man who, even in the face of certain death, refused to falter but to die protecting those unable to. Among this need to emulate his father was an inheritance of his enemies. When he was told that Darth Vader had betrayed and murdered his father, he instinctively took up the mantle to avenge the death of his father. He desired to destroy the man who had betrayed him. He probably suspected that Vader and Anakin had been friends, which made the betrayal all the more bitter. His need, his desire to be like his father and live up to the heroic name he had inherited, came to a head on Cloud City. There he faced off against Darth Vader, the man who had murdered his father. After a lengthy duel, in which he was simply outmatched, he learned the horrifying truth.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No, I am your father.
In that moment, his worldview came crashing down. His father, the man he had always immortalized, was a lie. Instead, he was the very man who had killed his fellow Jedi, betrayed the wise and good Obi-Wan Kenobi. Even as he stood there, this man, who he had just learned was his father, was trying to get him to join him in a power-driven coup to take the Imperial throne. Yet, he never abandoned the romantic image of his father. In his mind, Anakin Skywalker had been a good and honorable man. And the one who stood before him, Darth Vader, was a victim, someone who had been brainwashed.
I've accepted the truth that you were once Anakin Skywalker, my father.
That name no longer has any meaning for me.
It is the name of your true self you've only forgotten. I know there is good in you. The Emperor hasn't driven it from you fully.
His faith in the good of his father drove out any idea of ending the monster. No, he instead wanted to redeem him, turn him back to light. This need and desire to return his father to what he had once imagined him to be drove his every action. Even when standing in the midst of a great battle, having allowed the dark side to gain entry to defeat Vader, he suddenly saw that he and Vader weren't so different. That Anakin Skywalker had been twisted. As Obi-Wan himself had said, Vader was not his real enemy. It was the darkness that had consumed him.
I'll never turn to the dark side. You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
In the end, this proclamation of being a Jedi and putting all his faith in his father led him to nearly being destroyed. But then Anakin Skywalker awoke, turning on Palpatine and destroying him. Yet the effort destroyed him. As he lay dying, he admitted that Luke had always been right about him. Luke's greatest desire had been to be like his father, to be the romantic warrior that had done so much good. Even when faced with the reality that his father had turned evil, he refused to give up on the image he had in his mind. Thus, here comes the tragedy. In the end, his faith was rewarded. His father turned to the light, but the effort of becoming good killed him. When we look at the prequels, the main character is Anakin. Anakin was a slave who dreamed of becoming a Jedi and liberating the slaves. In his mind, the Jedi were invulnerable, incapable of being killed. To young Anakin, Jedi appeared where there was injustice. They used their power to right the wrongs of the universe. They had the power, therefore the right and ability to go change things for the better.
I had a dream I was a Jedi. I came back here and freed all the slaves. Have you come to free us?
No, I'm afraid not.
I think you have. Why else would you be here?
To Anakin, the Jedi were meant to be liberators, that only injustice could bring the Jedi to a place, that the Jedi were wandering freedom fighters. This wasn't just a thing he himself believed. His mother, Shmi, was certain that Qui-Gon's arrival signaled the end to her son's slavery, that somehow young Anakin's abilities had brought Qui-Gon Jinn to Tatooine. Anakin's desire to become a Jedi came from the belief that power would give him the right and freedom to grant freedom to others. He promised his mother that he would return and free her, that it was his duty and responsibility to do so. There was also a desire to keep the natural order of things as he saw fit. He did not want change to occur in his life if that change resulted in separation from loved ones. In essence, he wanted the great power to free others, but he only wanted the power if it didn't result in a change to his family life. We see that as he got older, this desire for power and the right that this power would give him became further entrenched in his mind. He believed that his own great power should give him a free pass and allow him to advance faster than his fellow Jedi. He complained about how he was ready for the trials and to become a Jedi Knight in his own right. The fact that most Jedi his age had been with the Order twice as long as he had wasn't an issue. For him, there should be no limits to his power, that he, Anakin Skywalker, the prophesied chosen one, should not be limited by what others deemed appropriate. This is very much the case with his desire for Padme. He believed his power granted him the right to have her. It didn't matter her opinions in the matter. Power made might, and might made right. Rules and commitments were for lesser beings. This became apparent after the death of his mother. After massacring the Sand People, he hides in the large garage, working on the speeder which had broken.
Sometimes there are things no one can fix. You're not all powerful.
Well, I should be. Someday I will be. I will be the most powerful Jedi ever. I promise you. I will even learn to stop people from dying.
With this, we realize just how much power he wants. He wants the power to prevent death itself. In essence, he wished to become a god, to rewrite the very laws of nature to suit a world where what he claimed as his own would never change or die. This need to believe in power giving people the right to force change is apparent in his conversation with Padme about politics. He believed that there should be discussion, and that what was considered best to solve a problem was decided upon, they should just do it. When Padme responds that this is the very nature of the democratic system, but people don't agree and opinions have to be respected, he responds with, they should be made to. At that moment, it wasn't even himself that he believed should be the enforcer of the good. It should be someone wise and with power. Wisdom and power trumped the opinion of others. That these powerful individuals should have unlimited power to violate the rights of others if it meant that problems were solved. Anakin's fear of change, especially death, drove him further to search greater power. When he begins to have visions of Padme's death and childbirth, he becomes frantic. His first choice to solve this question is to go straight to the Grand Master of the Jedi Order.
Death is a natural part of life. Rejoice for those around you who transform into the Force. Mourn them do not. Miss them do not.
When it became apparent that the Jedi will not help him stop death itself, he becomes delighted that Palpatine offers him the chance to become a master. He seemed to believe that becoming a master would in turn increase his own great power level, that this next step would unlock secrets for him to become this godlike deity he saw himself to become. And thus he became more fully open to the influence of the dark side. He began listening to legends and suggestions of the dark side. Upon learning that Sith had achieved the ability to stop death of others, he was ready to peer into the darkness and see what secrets it would yield to him.
Only through me can you achieve a power greater than any Jedi. Learn to know the dark side of the Force, and you will be able to save your wife from certain death.
But as he turned, becoming Darth Vader, those who were once his friends turned on him. His wife, the very person he was justifying all these terrible actions for, suddenly was trying to talk him out of his pursuit of power. He could not understand why this would turn the ones he cared about against him.
Don't you see? We don't have to run away anymore. I have brought peace to the Republic. I am more powerful than the Chancellor. I can overthrow him. And together, you and I can rule the galaxy. Make things the way we want them to be.
I don't believe what I'm hearing. Obi-Wan was right. You've changed.
Anakin had lost all sense of right and wrong. He had fully embraced his belief that might made right. He was subjugating the entire galaxy for the Emperor, even as he was plotting to overthrow him and set himself up as Emperor. He even called it my new empire. In his rage, he force-choked Padme and was defeated in a terrible duel. He learned that he had killed his wife and unborn child in his anger, even as he emerged in a new robotic body, a monster to behold and a terror to witness. And thus the tragedy of the prequels is realized. As a child, he wanted to become a Jedi, and with the power it gave him, he could become a liberator. Yet the older he got, the more frustrated he became that instead of unlimited power, the Jedi put limitations on the power to keep ambition in check. Then his fear of death drove him to kill the Jedi, the very thing he originally wanted to become, and become an enslaver. He even murdered the woman he loved because she would not bow to his wishes. His pursuit for power ended up resulting not in his freeing of slaves, but turning the entire galaxy into slaves. In both of these prior trilogies, we see that they concluded with our heroes being denied the very thing they wanted. Redeeming his father resulted with Luke watching him dying, and Anakin ended up turning everyone into slaves, even as he returned to being one himself. So how can this apply to the sequel trilogy? Well, who is the main character? Rey. And what does she want more than anything else? When we first meet Rey on Jakku, she is simply living day-to-day scavenging for junk. We first see what she wants when she's talking with BB-8. Rey's desire for family has kept her living in squalor. She has the optimistic belief that she simply remains in place and be patient, that her patience and loyalty would be rewarded. Yet, would she even recognize her parents if they actually returned after all these years? Were they even still alive? These questions simply didn't arise in her mind. She had a fierce belief that her family would not only return, but embrace her with all the love she'd been denied for over a decade. Even when she escaped Jakku, her desire for her family kept trying to drag her back to Jakku.
If you were, I'd be flattered. But I have to get home.
Jakku?
I've already been away too long.
It isn't until she grabs the lightsaber that someone confronts her with the truth. Maz Kanata tells her that she's been waiting in vain, that her family isn't coming back, but she could have a family with Luke Skywalker. She rejects it, though. It isn't simply the mantle of a Jedi she's rejecting. In her mind, accepting the lightsaber is to finally accept the idea that her family had abandoned her. She's unwilling to accept this idea. This is even despite the fact that she had immediately substituted her absent parents with Han Solo.
And Han Solo? You feel like he's the father you never had. He would have disappointed you.
Again, within a few hours, she had already seen Han Solo as a father figure. Her desire and drive for a family leads her to irrational attachments with complete strangers. It would drive her so far as to start seeing Kylo Ren, who had murdered someone she considered a father figure, as both a good person and someone she could save. She begged Luke to teach her because she wants to know where she belongs, what her place in the galaxy is. She wants to belong, and much of the reason she abandons Luke is because he won't do so. He continually resists her attempts at forcing herself into his life. It is this desperate desire for family and longing that Snoke and Kylo Ren are able to exploit. Even after Snoke is killed and they stand in the ruins of his throne room, despite his own divergent views from her own, Rey asserted that her loyalty, accepting Kylo Ren for who he is, would result in unconditional love and acceptance by him, but only on her terms.
I want you to join me. We can rule together and bring a new order to the galaxy.
In the end, she refuses to accept him because his desire for power exceeds his desire for her. Even though he was offering her a chance to rule as Empress of the Galaxy, she refused to accept. For her, power, glory, ruling a vast empire doesn't appeal. To her mind, she should be the most important thing in someone's life. And when she realizes that she isn't that for Kylo, she refuses. Here we are beginning to see the start of her own tragedy. Even when acceptance is being shown her and others, like Ben, are willing to embrace her as family, she pulls away. This acceptance has to come on her terms. She has to be the most important aspect of that person's life. Using the previous trilogies as examples, we can then guess where the sequel trilogy will end. Rey finds the acceptance and family she has always desired, and yet she suddenly realizes that in order to defeat evil, she needs to let go of the idea of ever being accepted, that her own wants need to be sacrificed for the greater good. It's a perfect way to end the series. Anakin started with a desire to become a great liberator. Luke wanted to be like his father, and Rey simply wants to have a family, and yet in the end, all of these things are denied them. Anakin by his own lust, Luke by being incapable of saving his father, and Rey by accepting that good needed to overcome all other things. Well, that's it for today, guys. Now let me know what you think of this. How do you think the saga will end? Have a wonderful day, and may the Force be with you.
The rebellion cannot be allowed to persist. Ignite the inferno.